A very good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel on a day where Everton have whimpered out of the FA Cup at the quarter-final stage following a 4-0 defeat away to Crystal Palace. Um, Another awful display on the road. I think the first thing I've got to say is my sympathies go out to all of the Blues who got up at some ungodly hour this morning and made the journey down to Selhurst Park. And to be repaid with that sort of display, I can't imagine how much of a kick in the teeth that must feel. But it's something which we're not so we're not so not that used to seeing, really, because it just adds to the long list of dire performances away from home on the road, and it just this very familiar feeling of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Um, just getting into the game. It was it this seems to be becoming quite the trend now, isn't it? We start a game and we look quite bright. We seem to be looking up for the game. We look in control. You get the impression that, okay, maybe we're up for this game. Maybe we've got a bit of fight about us, and this is a turning point now. And we're going to take the game to this side. And then there always seems to be some strange turning point in the game where we just completely fall off the edge of a cliff, and then we just completely get our backsides handed to us, which was the case today. Um, if I think back to the Newcastle game, we started relatively okay there, and then you could argue that Yerry Mina got injured, stopped the momentum, and from that point onward, we were awful. Fast forward to Southampton, Alan gets booked after quite a bright start to the game, kills the momentum of the game. And now we've just seen it again today when Andros Townsend went down with his injury. We just never seem to recover from that either, and it's just so frustrating because, as I said before, all the signs were there that Everton were up for this game and we were going to take the fight to Crystal Palace and book ourselves that semi-final spot at Wembley. But yet again, these spineless excuses of footballers have completely let the club down again and let the travelling fans down. Um, yeah, so early on in the game, we looked so hungry. We were first to every ball. It looked like the game plan was to take the game to Palace, and it looks like that's what was happening. We were fierce, we were fast, we were looking dangerous. Ben Godfrey had a great chance to put us 1-0 up very early into the game. It was a ball fizzed across the box, and he was just a little bit too late to make a connection. And if that goes in, then I'm sure we may be having a different conversation. But Everton started the game really well, really positively. The commentary team, Ali McCoy, Stephen, made a point of saying he's never seen a team start a game so positively, with such intensity, with such ferocity, and that maybe lured us into this false sense of security that we were still quite confident following on from the Newcastle win in the week. And we thought that maybe, these players are up for this here, and we are going to give everything it takes to get this semi-final spot. And the fans were in great voice. Everything was looking so encouraging. Then of course Andros Townsend goes over on his ankle. The game stops, and at this point you do think to yourself, can we continue this momentum? And we just didn't. That was as good as it got, really. As soon as Andros Townsend went off, the momentum just completely got carried away from us, and it just allowed Crystal Palace to get into their game, and they didn't really have to get out of second gear at all. They knocked the ball around well. They looked the more likely to score, and eventually, of course, they did. It was a corner. Whipped in. Again, no one's really tight to the man. I forget his name, but it's that centre half who's just been called up to the England squad. And it's a free header. No one's really challenging him. No one's really making any sort of attempt to win the ball. It was like complete night and day from the opening 10, 15 minutes. And once Palace got that first goal, Everton just heads just dropped, and we saw these players for what they really are yet again. A leopard never changed its spots, and I think we've seen that again with these players. Something doesn't go the way, and any kind of character just gets zapped out of them, and they just didn't want to know. I even think for the second goal, you look at players like Andre Gomez, who were just jogging. I wouldn't even call it a jog; I'd call it more of a brisk walk back to try and track his man. I think it was is it that Jean-Philippe Mateta got the second one, and from that point, Palace knew that they were going to be the victors in this game. They were going to be progressing. But the sad thing is that as soon as Palace went 1-0 up, it was game over. It was game over. If we're all being totally honest with ourselves, I think we all know that it was game over as soon as that first goal went in, because on countless occasions this season, we've seen this group of players completely crumble when something doesn't go their way or they face any kind of setback in a game. And we just see them for what they really are, and they just fold like a deck chair, and a complete insult to the travelling fans, really, to put up that kind of display. And from that point onwards, we never looked like scoring, really. We couldn't string 5 passes together, which is just seems to be quite the trend away from home this season. The performance level completely dropped off. We were awful. We were god awful. It just seems like we're just saying the same thing again and again and again in these away fixtures now. That there's no fight, no character. It's just all things that we've been saying all season. And as I said, I go back to the point I made at the start of the video. You've got to feel for those fans. They're getting up at what, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting on coaches, um, and arrive, and the game's over after 20 minutes after such a positive start. Of course, we are live on YouTube, so if you are watching, drop us a comment. If you've got any questions or anything, any points you want to make, I'll to read as many out as I can. We've got Barry Doyle here. He says, "What do Everton need?" Oh, that's the $1,000,000 question, Barry, isn't it, mate? I don't think I've got the answer to that. I don't think anyone's got the answer to that. I think consistency would be great. Some kind of consistency. I know we're talking out of terms here with the FA Cup and the league, but the FA Cup is always something the fans can unite and get behind. And if we book the spot at Wembley, it's only going to breed confidence and it's only going to breed momentum. So of course it's not the league, but still, we know how much our fans love the FA Cup, and we love a day out at Wembley. We don't get many days like that, do we? So today was a great opportunity for us. But no, the players have just served us up another 90 minutes of pure dross. Well, I say 90 minutes, probably about 80 minutes today. So what do Everton need? We just need consistency. But I just don't. I think the problem is, Barry, is that we're not going to get it from this group of players, are we? They just lack any kind of spine, any kind of fight, any kind of character, all the things that we just know, and we've just been repeating ourselves. It's like we're on a loop with these videos after games since like the back end of September. We need some kind of, even just going back to the league, a run of 2-3 games where we go unbeaten, pick up, I know, even 7 points or something. That would be great for us. But like I said, I just don't think we're going to get anything from these players. With Koeman, who was your best player? Gordon for me again. Um, it's hard, isn't it? It's really hard to pick out one from today, because the how drastic the drop off in performance was. I think it's difficult to pick out a best player. I suppose in terms of effort, yeah, maybe you're not wrong with Anthony Gordon, but I thought even Anthony Gordon in the second half, thought he was very poor in the levels that we've seen. We just couldn't take advantage of anything. We just never looked like scoring, really, did we? And yeah, we're out of the competition at the quarterfinal stage. Really disappointing. Some we thought that this FA Cup was something that was, despite the god awful season we're having, the FA Cup was almost something that the fans could use as a bit of an escape. The prospect of a day out at Wembley, as much as the priority is staying in the Premier League, a day out at Wembley, it's always going to get everyone. It's always going to get everyone a bit more. Give people something to sing about more than anything else. But it, there's just nothing, is there? This season just continues to produce disappointment after disappointment, doesn't it? It's never nice to go out the quarter-final stage. I think we went out at this stage last season, albeit last season it was to Manchester City. But even when even if we're just going to talk solely about the FA Cup and this game today, I remember I was in the pub before the Boreham Wood game, and they were picking out the ties. And as soon as I saw we were away from home, I struggled to see how we were going to advance to Wembley, to be honest with you. And Crystal Palace, it was always going to be a tough game. I think maybe a few people got sucked back in, myself included. I think we all maybe got sucked back in the sense that following that win in midweek, we could maybe take that into. It came at a great time going into this FA Cup game to be able to take the fight to Crystal Palace and maybe heading into the international break, knowing that we've got two back-to-back wins and a place at Wembley, and that would have done confidence the world of good. But again, I go back to the point I made before. These players have just showed their true colours yet again. They're cheats, as far as I'm concerned. They're absolute cheats. Time and time and time again, they are consistently poor. I've never known a set of Everton players to be so lackluster and just bottleless. Yeah, it's just awful, isn't it? Um, yeah, but I think I speak for a lot of Evertonians. We say it's just very numb at the minute, isn't it? It's not even like you don't even get angry with it anymore because the sad reality is we come to expect it. James says, I do think next season we will look better, but right now I'm asking myself what's going on at Finch Farm. We don't look to be working on any of our weaknesses. And yeah, James, I think that's a great point you've just made. We just seem to be shipping. I know we kept a clean sheet against Newcastle, but we just seem to be shipping so many goals at the moment. You know, you think we 5 against Tottenham, 4 against Crystal Palace today. You know, 2 against Southampton, 3 against Newcastle. It's just we just seem so vulnerable at the back at the moment, and that's really concerning, especially with the fixtures in the Premier League we've got coming up. You know, I think we still have to play Chelsea, we still have to play Manchester United, we still have to play Liverpool, we still have to play West Ham, we still have to play Leicester twice, and of course 2 massive games in teams around us in Watford and Burnley, which again are away from home, which is really frightening, isn't it? But you're spot on, mate. I do wonder myself what's going on at Finch Farm because it just seems to be the same sort of situations. We're getting caught out in these big glaring gaps at the back, defensive errors. But again, what do you say? What do you say when you've got the same group of players turning in, week out? You know, I know people come out of these games and we're all so quick to say, oh, well, we should never see Mason Holgate in an Everton shirt again. We should never see Michael Keane in an Everton shirt again, Seamus Coleman. But the fact of the matter is, these are all we've got, really. I mean, okay, there's the argument there for Nathan Patterson, and me, myself, I would like to see him get a lot more games, but it just doesn't seem to be the case at the minute. I don't know what the situation is with Patterson. The centre halves are just awful. I think, you know, whoever you're gonna put in the back, it's just shit or shite in it at the minute. I think that's the problem, James. I don't doubt that Lampard, you know, he's trying to address these issues. Of course, he has. He's brought in a whole new backroom staff with proven winners. I just think the fact of the matter is these players are just so god awful. These players are terrible. They're pathetic, absolutely pathetic. You know, I'm sure a lot of people viewed Lampard's interview after the game. He just seems as fed up with it as we are at the moment. And he's only been here, just over a month, maybe 2 months nearly. Um, you know, I think he's got these players cards marked, and he must feel like his hands are tied because he's not going to get a tune out of these players. You know, 7 or 8 managers have failed to get any kind of form out of these players for X amount of years now, and I don't think that's about to change anytime soon. The crucial thing is that we just somehow ride our luck as we did against Newcastle the other night and try and scrape as many points as possible to the point where we finish outside the bottom 3. Because I feel like the blue tinted glasses were maybe on after the Newcastle win. Again, pains me to say it, but I think that's the case. I don't think we played particularly well against Newcastle. Well, we rode our luck in the end, and okay, maybe you could argue that extra bit of effort towards the end, thanks to the crowd, managed to pull us through. But that's not always going to be the case. You know, I stand by the point I made a couple of weeks ago when I said I don't see Everton getting another point away from home at all this season because we just look that bad, that bad. Stink Poos has just put it's crucial to beat Burnley and Watford. It is absolutely. That could be the difference between those 2 games. Could be whether we are a Premier League side or not next season. You know, those 2 fixtures could determine whether Everton Football Club lose their top flight status. And if you look at you only have to look at the desire of these players away from home, and it doesn't fill you with a lot of confidence, does it? We are lacking really good defensive line and also holding midfield players. We are still in danger. Yes, okay. If we're just talking about today's game, there was no Alan through suspension, no Donny van der Beek through his being cup tied. And you look at Abdoulaye Doucouré, I thought he was very poor today. I thought Doucouré was very poor again today. And he's been poor for the last few weeks, if we're being honest. I don't know what's happened to him at all. We know that there is a player in there. We've seen him put in some fantastic performances for Everton, but it just seems that those numbers of poor performances are just creeping up a little bit too much for my liking at the minute. And Andre Gomez, I think he's awful, to be honest. I think Andre Gomez isn't the answer. That you go and watch back that second goal, you just see the way he's jogging back. No one's busting a gut to put the body on the line or make any kind of decisive challenge. There's none of that. And that's the most disheartening thing, isn't it? You look at players like John Joe Kenny as well. I mean, John Joe Kenny, he really isn't the answer. JT says Frank and Leclerc need to find the formation and use it and maximise it with a bit of time here and there to cover weaknesses on the defence and set pieces. Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I don't doubt that this group of coaches and this manager won't solve that. But I just don't think there's any hope with these players. I just think they're that bad. They're that spineless, that gutless, that they just don't fill me with any hope that in the short term, these issues will be rectified. We've got 10, 11 games left of this Premier League season. We've got 2 weeks now on the international break, and you can't. I want to say, we've got to use this time to work and sort it out. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of noise coming out the club this week of, we need to do this and we need to do that. And we need to train here, we need to do there, we need to stick together. And then they'll probably wheel Anthony Gordon out a couple of days before the game and plead for our support like a lost puppy or something, which isn't fair on the lad anyway. But we know these players, don't we? We know these players. We know who they are. We know what they are. And it ain't going to change anytime soon, as bad as that sounds. And if we are going to stay up, it's going to be a case of us just riding our luck and hopefully coming up against sides that are either A, having an off day, or B, are just as poor as us, and hope that we get the we get the drop. And it's going to be a big ask because by no means at all we are not out the woods in terms of safety. Just on the game today, of course, the FA Cup. It's a sickener to go out at any quarter-final stage. When Wembley's in touching distance, it's always difficult. Frank Lampard, he's a winner, isn't he? He's countless times he's been to Wembley to compete for FA Cups, League Cups, whatever else, and it'll be really disappointing for him today to go out at this stage and in this manner as well. 4-0 against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace aren't a great side. With all due respect, Crystal Palace, it's not like we've gone away to a side competing for Europe here or challenging for titles or anything like that. Crystal Palace didn't really have to get out of second gear. I think it just more than anything else, it highlights how poor we are. And I go back to that point I made about these players have just cheated the fans again. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans at the time of recording who are still on coaches right now, coming back. They've been on coaches all day. They've probably pulled into a service station, and the coach driver's probably on his break, and they're up and be banging their heads against the window, just wanting to get home as quick as possible. It's a feeling that I know I've been there myself, and I'm sure many people watching this stream have been there as well. And it just, this relationship between this set of players and the fans, it's nothing that I've ever seen before. I've never seen anything like this in my life. There's no relationship. There's no understanding between the fans and the players. Okay, it was a great win in midweek. I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't, but it's just, they're like clockwork. That's the only thing I can say. These players are like clockwork. You know what you're going to get with them. That it's just so predictable. It's just so predictable to the point where, if we were being totally honest with ourselves, I think we knew what would have happened today. And I think once the momentum of our positive start got broken down through Andros Townsend's injury, then I think a lot of people wouldn't have been too surprised to see us drop off like that. And of course, when the first goal went in, as far as I was concerned, that was game over. As soon as that first goal went in, that went over, unfortunately. And it's horrible to have to say that. It's horrible that we can't, dust ourselves down and, look at our leaders on the pitch who's going to put an arm around one another and shake each other down and think, okay, so we're only one goal down, we're still in this. We started really well. Who's on that pitch? to say that, to make these points of we had a great start. We looked a better team. We looked like we had them scared a little bit. You know, we were in the faces. We could have a goal was coming. I do believe if we just continued in that intensity, a goal was coming. But no, we know this the fragilities of this side. They're mentally weak. You know, the mentality midgets. I put a tweet out earlier calling these players mentality midgets because they are. You know, you go one goal down. You go one goal down in a cup quarter final with a place at Wembley on the line, with the opportunity to compete for a place in the final at stake, and you've started so well to just go a goal down and completely collapse like that. They're just frauds. They're just cheats. They don't deserve. I'd be embarrassed to pick up my wages. There's cheats, absolute fraud footballers. That's all they are, and they've cheated the fans yet again. It just adds to the long list. No fight, no bite, just shite. Yeah, absolutely. Just before we wrap things up, be sure to drop the stream a like. If you are watching, subscribe if you haven't done already. We're probably going to wrap it up quite soon because there's not much to go over other than that we are just a very, very poor footballing side, aren't we? Stink, as Putin has just said again. Are there any players in the reserves who are better than those who get a start? Yeah, again, it's a fantastic point you've just made. How much worse can these players do if we are going to bring in the likes of, I don't know, your Pattersons, your Branthwaites, your Dobbins? Where's Lewis Dobbin gone? Dobbins just seemed to, ever since he signed that contract, he's fell off the face of the earth as well, hasn't he? I don't get it. Like, how much worse can these players do? Because I refuse to believe that Nathan Patterson can't do any worse than Seamus Coleman. You know, at times in that game, I'd even go as far to say there's times where I don't think a player like Lewis Dobbin could do as worse as Damari Gray or Richarlison, who were very poor again today. You know, we've just got to try switching it up because these players are proven to be poor. They're proven poor players who are just pathetic and can't stand up and be counted. And you know, I hate to say it, but in a way, like you get to Wembley, you can't be naive enough to think that those players wouldn't cheat us again. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm not trying to say it's a good thing we've been knocked out now and not at Wembley, because of course I would have loved to have gone to Wembley. I'm sure everyone watching would have loved the day out at Wembley and, you know, get behind the team, you know, book hotels, make a weekend of it. I'm sure we all would have. But deep down, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, we know that they just would have cheated us again and they would have just folded yet again because they can't handle the pressure. They can't handle the big occasions when it matters. We know this deep down. And yeah, we just know what we would have been in for, really, don't we? But it's a sickener. We're out of the cup again, another year without a trophy. I'm sure the backlash will continue, and then once the international break starts coming around again, I'm sure the club will do their usual spiel of releasing some training pictures. Someone will come out and say, you know, some rally cry or whatever else. I don't know. It's just it's just a sickener, isn't it? We've gone out of the cup again. Of course, the priority is the Premier League, but you know, even you just don't know. Performances like that just don't fill you with any hope, did he? Stuart Keane is a Rangers fan. He's come on and he said, "What's happening with Nathan Patterson? You tell me, Stuart. You tell me." We've seen he's been at the club since the beginning of January. We're nearly in April now. He was brought in to provide another option instead of Seamus Coleman, who's been struggling. And so far, he's been limited to 45 minutes against a non-league side. And I thought he was quite impressive, to be fair. I didn't think he did too much wrong, but was hauled off at half-time, and we haven't seen him since. So your guess is as good as mine, Stuart. Erwin says, "Carl, which players in this squad do you actually think are good, and would you keep?" You know what? As the season's start of the season, I could have probably given you a list of quite a few names. After everything that I've seen this season, that list has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think I'm at the point now where if I wouldn't lose any sleep if any of them got sold. I think we've been let down so many times. It's been so few of them who can stand up and be counted or produce a little bit of magic, a little bit of quality. I think if I have to choose one or two, I could probably think off the top of my head two. Jordan Pickford, because I think he deserves to be captain because he's vocal, and you can't pin all the goals on him because he's pulled out some great saves. I just think he's got a piss poor defence in front of him. I think that's all the problem is there with Pickford. Um, Pickford's one of the standouts. I'd be quite gutted if Pickford went because I feel like he's good captain material, and I hope that he does stick around and we give him the captain's armband because he looks like he cares, he looks vocal, and hopefully if we gave him the captain's armband, then that would he would only improve in his leadership qualities. And then I'd probably have to say Anthony Gordon as well, purely on the basis of he looks promising. He showed sparks that he can be a great player, and he's so young as well. So it could be a great asset for the future once we get this god awful season out of the way. But apart from those two players, Jordan Pickford and Anthony Gordon, I really struggle. I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin," but you've got to be honest with yourself. Their goal scoring record this season has been so poor, really poor. Like, where are these? We're not seeing them. These are supposedly meant to be our game changing players, our players who are gonna do something for us, or get a goal when it matters, and we just haven't seen that from them this season. Okay, and I don't doubt Richarlison's commitment to the cause, but I don't know. I just think as much as he's likable, Richarlison, and he is very likable, um, if it comes between having a player who's likable or is getting relegated, then I'd rather have players who are going to keep us in the division and score goals, to be honest. And that's just me being brutally honest. Um, yeah, Inky Squid, why did we sell Dean, especially when we sacked Rafa 4 days later? I know, mate, I know it begs the belief, doesn't it? But it's just what it's like the comedy of errors this season, and it's just one thing after another. Um, it's just laughable. The only word I can describe it, it's been pathetic and laughable. Benitez has killed us, says Erwin Koeman, and turns into Newcastle. Yeah, yeah, I suppose, but you've got to look at who appointed him in the first place and who's allowed this slow 6 year demise of the club. And I think that blame has to land with the ownership, unfortunately. Um, yeah, um, yeah, a sour taste in the mouth going into the international break. 4-0 away at Crystal Palace. You've got to feel for the Blues who travelled down there today and witnessed that, especially after starting so positively. But the mental fragilities of this side have been exposed yet again, and going to some massive games on the other side of the international break. We are really looking at the running of the Premier League at this point, and we just need to get points from somewhere, and hopefully it's enough to keep us up. Um, it's a shame that there's no Wembley day out. I'm sure there's been a couple of people maybe cancelling hotel bookings tonight. I'll admit I'll be one of them. Um, but there you go. Let's just hope we can maybe scrape over the line, and the quicker we can do that, we can forget about this season and start shipping out these pathetic excuses of footballers and maybe start building from scratch again. Because yeah, I think we're in for a difficult couple of months here now, but hopefully we can have enough. Right, enough of the depressing video. We'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, if you haven't, give us a like, drop one. If you haven't done already, subscribe to the Toffee Blues if you haven't done already. And yeah, I know it's difficult at the moment, but we've all just got to stick together, haven't we, and just try and see it out. I know it's so difficult to get behind these players. They're not very likable, especially when you see them not even trying. I just go back to that second goal. I've got this image of Andre Gomez just jogging back as if it's some pre-season kickabout, some testimonial when it's an FA Cup quarter-final. It just begs belief, doesn't it? Yeah, it just begs belief. There's just so many. Yeah, I'm going on a bit now, but yeah. So thanks for watching, everyone. International break now. Hopefully, you don't have to think about Everton for a while, and we'll come back and just try and keep plugging away and just pluck as many points as we can and try and stay up. But yeah, out of the FA Cup again, nothing new, is it? Let's be honest. 28 years this is going to be now, isn't it? But God knows. Right, I'll go now. Thank you everyone for watching. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't done already, and try to enjoy the rest of your evening and have a good week. All the best. Take care, everyone.